"You were never part of this family," my mom texted after she skipped my baby shower to vacation with my sister despite years of paying their bills and clearing their debts. "Then don't expect another penny from me," I replied coldly and cut them off forever. My name is Samuel, and I used to believe I was merely the more silent sibling, the one who didn't crave a lot of notice. It took me years to face reality. I had never been the chosen one, not even close. My sister, Catherine, was the favorite from the very beginning. Perfect grades, cheerleader, nursing college, married to a doctor. She wasn't blamed for anything. And if she ever did something wrong, it somehow landed on me. During childhood, I felt like a side character in my own household. I can recall getting second place in a state science competition. My father asked why I hadn't finished first. Catherine once prepared a salad for dinner, and they praised her like she belonged on MasterChef. But I didn't stop trying. I landed a solid position in cybersecurity, met a fantastic woman who truly accepted me for who I am, and together, we created a peaceful and dependable home. When she became pregnant, something shifted in my mind. I believed this might be the moment when everything would change, that maybe this time, they would show up for me. We scheduled the baby celebration for March 8th. My wife's parents kindly offered their backyard for the event. They hung up decorations, arranged for food service, and even rented heaters in case the weather got cold. Her relatives were happy in a way I wasn't used to. They were texting us for weeks beforehand, asking if we needed anything, if we had created a registry. Her uncle, basically a one-man builder, constructed a wooden changing station and drove 3 hours to hand deliver it. I phoned my parents 4 weeks before the party. I told them the day, the time, and the location. They claimed they would check their calendar. The evening before the event, my mother still hadn't mentioned anything. I sent a message to confirm. She replied, "We'll see. Maybe I've made plans with Catherine. Depends." That was all. My Matthew felt uneasy, but I didn't want to ruin the mood, so I said nothing. When the shower day arrived, guests began coming, carrying presents, smiling, hugging my wife as if she were already their family. The yard looked fantastic. Ribbons, light-colored balloons, a large dessert table. Everything should have felt perfect, except for the 2 empty chairs meant for my parents. They were never filled. I made one phone call just to be sure. No reply. 10 minutes later, Catherine uploaded a picture to Instagram, her and my parents relaxing at a beach getaway, drinking fresh coconut water. The caption read, "Finally a real family vacation. Much needed time together." I stared at that caption for a long time. My wife's mother saw it over my shoulder and stayed silent. She just gently touched my back and walked away. I sent the image to my mother. No message. Just the photo. She responded a few minutes later. "She's a real family. You're not. We need that." That reply hit as hard as every other thing I had pushed down for years. It all clicked. I showed my wife the message. She didn't look shocked, just deeply hurt. I sent another message. "Okay. Be ready for what comes next," and I was serious. A few hours passed, and I received a bank alert. Someone had tried taking $5,800 out of one of our shared accounts. That was when everything became completely clear. They weren't only emotionally gone. They were financially draining me. That bank account had originally been open to help with house expenses when they weren't working, but they never stopped using it. So I sat at my desk and began cutting all ties. I shut down every single account they could touch: banking, savings, credit lines, entertainment services, utility bills. I contacted every provider and erased myself from every co-signed account. I updated all login details, even ones they didn't realize I still remembered. I printed the electric bill and mailed it with a sticky note that read, "You owe me $64,000. Time to pay." 2 hours later, my phone began buzzing. Calls from my mom, then my father, then Catherine. I didn't respond. I didn't have to because this was only the start, and I had a lot more coming. The next day, my phone wouldn't stop ringing like their lives were falling apart. I ignored each ring, every voice message. My mom sent a bunch of texts starting with, "What on earth are you doing?" Then they quickly turned into, "You've always been selfish. We gave up everything for you." The usual stuff. Eventually, my dad sent one that said, "We need to meet in person." I messaged back. Okay. Come to the house at noon. When they arrived, it was both of them. And Catherine. She dressed like she thought we were going out to a cafe. I had left the door open. I stood aside and didn't say anything while they walked in and saw my wife's parents, her aunt and uncle, plus my aunt and uncle, already seated in the living room. None of them looked thrilled to see my parents walk in. My mother opened her mouth to speak, but I interrupted. I pulled out a folder and gave it to my dad. Inside were printed records from the past year and a half, the Netflix profile they'd been using but never paid for, gas charges on my bank card that I didn't make, even a receipt for furniture from an online store I'd never even heard of. I said, "Here's everything you took without asking. Don't worry. I'm not calling the cops. But I did talk to a lawyer. You may want to do that too." Catherine started laughing like I was overreacting, so I handed her a second envelope. This one had more weight. Inside were screenshots of the text she had sent my wife over the last 12 months. Mean, bitter messages, and sarcastic digs about her family. Messages like, "Your folks seem nice. Shame they didn't raise someone with gold." I looked at Catherine and said, "I've been saving these for a while. You thought staying quiet meant we weren't paying attention. That ends now." They didn't expect this. They thought I was still the old Samuel, shy, awkward, willing to keep quiet instead of standing up for myself. But fatherhood changed me. I told them they were no longer allowed in our home. My mom tried to fight back, saying I was ruining the family. That's when my wife's dad, normally the most relaxed guy in the group, stood and said, "Your son is starting something new. You're just bitter that it doesn't include you." I thought they'd walk out then, but they didn't. Catherine stayed behind after our parents left. She sat down and said she didn't deserve this, that she never meant any harm. I could tell she believed she could still twist the story to suit her. I didn't argue. I just gave her a third envelope. This one had something she never expected, copies of old emails between my dad and a guy named Matthew, who happened to be Catherine's husband's work partner at the clinic. To make it short, my dad had been trying to talk Catherine's husband into putting money into a fake software company, something he was starting with an old friend he used to drink with. The messages were full of lies, talk of big money, and even mentions of my company, like I was involved. I wasn't. Catherine went pale. I looked at her and said, "You're not the only one with proof." She stood up and left without saying a single word. That might have been enough for some people, but not for me because I had one more thing planned, something already moving behind the scenes, a surprise I'd been keeping since last Christmas, and it involved their house. 3 days later, after that talk, I received a phone call from my aunt, my dad's sister. She sounded upset, but not because of me. She was furious at my parents. Apparently, once they left my house, they began calling every family member on their side to tell their version of what happened before I could. Their story, that I had mentally collapsed, that I was emotionally unstable, that my wife was controlling my action, and worst of all, that I was trying to ruin our family's reputation. The family name, as if we were some kind of powerful dynasty like the Rockefellers. I wouldn't have even found out what they were spreading if my aunt hadn't reached out and told me. She also said that my mom accused me of stealing money from my own relative. That was the moment something inside me cracked. Until that point, I'd felt a cold kind of satisfaction from cutting them out of my life. But now it just felt sick, like something nasty had been growing for a long time. And I had kept calling it family because I didn't want to believe it was anything worse. The following day, Catherine showed up at my office. She walked straight into the lobby with confidence like she owned the building and demanded to speak with me. The front desk buzzed me and said it was a family emergency. I came downstairs. Catherine pulled me aside and told me things were spinning out of control, and I had to take care of it before our mom had another panic attack. I asked her if the panic attack happened before or after Mom tried to empty my bank account. Catherine didn't reply. Instead, she told me that if I really love my family, I would do something to fix the problem. That's when I saw the truth. She didn't want peace. She wanted the image to stay perfect, not for my sake, not even for our parents. She wanted it for herself. I said she had 10 seconds to leave, or I was calling security. She looked at me like I was speaking another language, like she was seeing me for the first time as someone who didn't owe her anything anymore. That night, I sat by myself in the car for more than an hour before going inside. I couldn't shake the heavy feeling like I was grieving people who were still alive. My wife found me sitting on the back porch, stantoning into nothing. She didn't say anything. She just sat next to me and waited. Finally, I said, I think I was asking them for something they never had in the first place. She asked, what do you mean? I answered, love, respect, all of it. I thought it belonged to me, and they just forgot about it, but it never belonged to me. I realized then that most of my adult life had been driven by that empty feeling, trying to get them to see me, to say I did something good, to be proud. But to them, I wasn't a real son. I was just a backup. And once they saw I had nothing left to offer, they turned on me. Knowing that should have brought me peace, but it didn't, it made me even more angry. So I made another phone call. I contacted Matthew, Catherine's husband's business partner. I still had his number from months ago when he reached out thinking I was involved in that fake software plan my dad had pitched. He picked up right away. I said I had a suspicion something bad was going on at the clinic, and he should take a look at a few things, especially any emails that involve my dad. He seemed surprised, but told me he would check. We hung up. I didn't think much more about it. 2 days later, Catherine's husband showed up at my house alone. Catherine wasn't with him. He looked like a man who had just dug up a bomb in his backyard. Gregory, Catherine's husband, stood outside my house like he couldn't believe he was there. I hadn't seen him without Catherine in a very long time. He was always polite, quiet, the kind of person who smiled too much and said too little. But that day, he looked like he had aged 10 years in just 2 days. He asked if he could come in. I stepped aside. He didn't take a seat. He just stood there in the living room, glancing around like the walls might crush him. Finally, he said, I've been checking the clinic documents. He told me that he and Matthew had signed a lot of paperwork over the past year, and there were some things he hadn't given his approval for. He paused and stared at me. Your dad listed you as a silent partner in a fake medical billing scam, one that funneled money to another party. I had already known that part. What I didn't see coming was what he said next. Catherine was the one who organized the entire thing. That froze me. He said it began as something small. Only a few added service charges slipped into patient invoices, barely noticeable. Then larger amounts started getting approved. And when Matthew spotted the issues, Catherine dismissed it, saying it was just a problem with the updated software, but it wasn't a mistake. It was all intention. They had been using my identity, my company name, my business information, mostly outdated stuff from freelance tech work I did long ago, and attaching it to a system they believed nobody would question since I worked in technology. Gregory had just learned that more than $137,000 had passed through suspicious accounts, and every trail led back to Catherine and my father. She told Gregory it was only for a short while. He said the purpose was to cover unpaid debt that my parents were sinking in. I asked him why he was telling me this. He stared straight at me and said, because I think she's going to blame you next, and I'm not getting dragged down with her. He left right after saying that. I didn't try to stop him. I just sat still, stantoning at the wall, trying to accept that my own sister had used my identity to commit a crime. The following day, a letter arrived at my door from a law office. No phone call, no email, just a printed document inside an envelope. It was a legal warning about a possible investigation involving actions tied to my LLC. Apparently, the clinic's accountant had found questionable numbers and alerted the board of directors, and my name had shown up in those suspicious records. I instantly called my lawyer, the same one who had suspicious records. I instantly called my lawyer, the same one who had already helped me separate myself from the financial accounts my parents could access, so he already knew the background. Even so, he sounded shocked. He said, "This isn't just crossing a line. They pulled you into a serious financial crime." Then he asked the question that hit hard. "Do you have the original LLC contract, the one with your full name, tax ID, and cancellation terms?" I told him, yes. I had it saved. But when I opened the file and really looked closely, I noticed something had changed. The digital version had been modified 6 months ago. Someone had added new lines allowing Catherine and my father to act as authorized users for expansion reasons. That night, I called my parent. When I asked them directly, they didn't deny anything. My mom said, "You weren't using it. We were helping." That's when everything became completely clear to me. Their behavior wasn't just careless. It was calculated. They didn't see me as family. They saw me as someone they could take advantage of for money, for support, for anything. Catherine wasn't the favorite because she was kind or flawless. She was favored because she played along, because she helped hide the damage, all while acting like the perfect daughter on vacation. So I made one more choice. I wasn't just going to emotionally move on. I wasn't just going to walk away. I was going to destroy all of it, legally, publicly, and for good. And I knew exactly how to begin, by sending one email to the IRS. When I hit send on that email, I didn't expect anything flashy. In fact, I didn't expect anything immediate. But the second I sent it, something shifted inside me. The fear I had carried for so long, the guilt, the pressure to protect them, it all started to go quiet. It took 5 days before anything happened. On the 6th day, Gregory called me again. He said 2 men in suits had arrived at the clinic asking questions, not local police, federal agents. I told him to stop speaking and gave him my attorney's phone number. Then I waited. 2 days later, the clinic shut down temporarily due to what they officially called a financial audit. That's what they said publicly, but people were talking. I got texts from 3 old classmates who worked in the clinic system. Catherine's name was being mentioned quietly, so was mine, but I was already completely out. My lawyer had already contacted the IRS and the clinic's board. Chantonyen cleared documents proving I hadn't touched the LLC in over 2 years and had never approved any updates. But Catherine and my dad, that was a different case. My mom tried to call me again. I didn't answer. Then she sent me a message. I hope you're satisfied. You destroyed your sister's life. I stared at that message for a long time. Not a single word about what they had done. Just more blame, like always. The following day, I wrote her my own reply, a picture showing the confirmation number from the IRS along with one sentence. I didn't destroy her life. She did that on her own, then I blocked her. Everything started happening fast after that. My aunt, the only person from my dad's family who still speaks to me, called and said that my parents were in serious trouble. It turned out their names were connected to certain consulting payments linked to the entire situation. Word was spreading that they could lose the house. In that house, it was the one thing I hadn't acted on, at least not yet. Here's why. It still legally belonged to me. Years ago, they had convinced me it would be better for taxes if I purchased the home and let them live in it. They promised to cover all the expenses. They said it was only paperwork, just a technicality. But a few weeks earlier, I looked up the loan records. And what did I find? They hadn't paid anything in 6 months, so I got on the phone with the bank. I explained the entire story, told them about the lies, the misuse of money, and that I, the legal owner, was no longer willing to keep paying for a house being used for financial misconduct. I gave them the okay to move forward with foreclosure. And to be honest, I didn't feel a bit of guilt. That place never felt like my home anyway. The last thing I ever got from my mother came on the day they were officially notified. She didn't write any message. She just sent a photo. The front porch empty, everything packed. Goodbye, I guess. I didn't send anything back because there was still one more person I needed to face before everything was finished, Catherine. Catherine never contacted me, not when the audit began, not when the clinic shut down, not when she lost her home. She kept completely quiet, which was very unlike her. Catherine always had something to say, always had a way to twist the story to make herself look better. The silence made me suspicious, so I waited. Then exactly 2 weeks after the house was taken by the bank, I got an email. No phone call. No message. An email like we were business associates. She wanted to meet somewhere neutral to talk about what could happen next. She picked a date and suggested a coffee shop in a quiet area of town. Her email was polite, written very carefully. I showed it to my lawyer first. He gave me a small nod and said, "Don't go by yourself," so I didn't. I walked into the cafe carrying 2 things, a recorder hidden in my jacket, and my wife sitting at the counter, watching just in case. Catherine had already arrived. No makeup, hair tied up. She looked worn out, not completely defeated. Catherine didn't fall apart easily, but definitely shaken. She started by saying, "I didn't realize Dad was using your name." I didn't say a word. Then she said, "It wasn't meant to grow this big. It was only supposed to help them until things improved." Still, I stayed silent. That's when she exploded. You got exactly what you wanted. They're gone from the house. I lost everything. Are you really just going to sit there pretending like you're the one who got hurt? That's when I looked at her and said, no. I'm not a victim. I'm the one who put an end to it. She stopped speaking. Maybe for the first time ever, she was speechless. I explained what I told the IRS, what I told Gregory, and what I presented to the clinic's board. I told her I had solid proof, emails, screenshots, files, that if they tried to drag me into their mess, they'd find out just how strong my case really was. Then I leaned forward and told her the one thing she didn't see coming. I don't care if you end up in prison, but if you ever come near me, my wife, or my baby after he's born, I'll take it public. I will crush you with everything I have, and you know how much I'm capable of. Catherine didn't say a thing. She stood up, picked up her bag, and walked out. I haven't heard from her ever since. After the foreclosure happened, my parents vanished. The most recent thing I heard through family gossip was that they were living with a cousin in another state, trying to sort things out. I didn't care. To be honest, I didn't do any of this to hurt them. I did it to stop the cycle, to stop wasting my time and energy on people who saw me as a tool, not as a human being. 3 weeks later, my wife and I welcomed our baby girl into the world. No chaos. No stress. Her parents were there. My aunt and uncle were there. We had dessert, music, some tears, and peace. It was the very first moment in my entire life that I felt like I belonged in a real family. And not one time during that entire day did I think about Catherine or my parents. That's when I realized it was truly finished. First update, it's been around 5 months since everything ended. Our daughter is growing quickly, smiling, making baby noises, kicking her legs like she's training for Olympic sports. Life has felt calm, a kind of calm that feels strange at first because you're not used to having it. No calls from Catherine, no backhanded texts from my mom, no emails pretending everything was fine. But then something unusual happened a few days ago. I got a letter in the mail. No sender listed, just my name typed neatly on the front. The envelope looked off, like it belonged in a bad drama movie. Too stiff, too formal, like it knew it wasn't supposed to be there. I opened it outside while my wife rocked our daughter gently on the porch. Inside was a typed sheet. No writing by hand. No name at the bot, Matthew. Just one typed message. You should check who's claiming they legally own your LLC. Look up the state records. Someone's messing around again. I froze. I hadn't touched that LLC since I shut it down months earlier. My lawyer handled the whole process. The state officially marked it as closed. It wasn't supposed to exist anymore, not on paper. But this note, it wasn't random. It included specific details only someone close to the situation could know. And something about how it was written, it didn't come off like a threat. It felt more like a warning. Right away, I went online, logged into the state's official business portal, and searched for the name of the LLC. There it was, reactivated 2 weeks earlier. Set up using a new business location in a different state. Filed under the same name I originally used, same federal ID number. Either someone had stolen my identity or they found a way to restart the LLC and attach it back to me. And the most shocking detail, the newly listed registered agent wasn't Catherine, wasn't my dad. It was Gregory, Catherine's husband. I haven't called him yet. I haven't told my lawyer yet. But I've got questions. Because either Gregory is secretly trying to fix this mess behind Catherine's back, or he was never innocent, not from the start. And I'm about to figure out which one is true. And if you've stayed with me this far, what do you think? Do you believe someone in the family sent that letter, or do you think it came from an outsider? What do you believe is on that USB drive? And who the hell is Antonio? I'd love to hear what you think. Share your guesses in the comments below. Who was lying? Who was fooling who? And what do you think happens next? If this story kept your attention or if you've been here since the beginning, don't forget to give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and click that bell icon so you'll know what's coming up next.